Now, at this point, I don't know about you all, but I really, really could use a somatic moment and a moment for somatic grounding. So we are very fortunate to have a friend and colleague here. I'm pleased to introduce an LA-based choreographer, a teaching artist, and a certified breath and meditation instructor and all-around guru, Toogie, who is going to be guiding us in a somatic grounding to set us in the right frame of mind for the event. Oh, and there she is. Can you see us and hear us, Toogie?
I sure can.
Beautiful. Good to see you. Thanks for coming.
I'm so happy and grateful to be here in this cyber world. It's very exciting, new frontier.
It's a new frontier, right? The way of the world, probably the way of the future. All right. Well, I'll let you do your thing. And thanks again. I'll let you take it from here.
All right, thank you, David. Hello, hello. Um, Hi. I'm seeing some familiar uh, faces and peoples, which is so wonderful. Hello, everyone. Um, Familiar and unfamiliar. Yeah, let's jump right in. So wherever you are right now, go ahead and find a comfortable position. If you're sitting or laying, whatever feels good to you. And whenever you find that position, go ahead and let your eyelids become heavy, let your eyes close, and bring your awareness to your internal state. Take a moment to notice the taste in your mouth, the temperature of your body, of the space that you're in, the sensation of the clothing on your body, the sounds in your space, um, the light coming in through your eyelids, the smell of the room you're in. Just taking a moment to do a sensory check in and allowing and accepting all of the sensations to be part of this present moment for you. Not categorizing anything as a distraction or unwelcome sound, just giving permission, allowing things to be as they are, and bringing your awareness down into your feet, feeling the sensation of the soles of your feet, your toes, your ankles, and bringing that awareness upwards into the lower leg, the shins, the calves, the knees, and just bringing our awareness into these spaces without any judgment, without trying to change anything about ourselves, and letting that awareness move into the upper leg, the thighs, the hamstring, all the way up into the hips and the pelvis, the lower abdominals, the lower back, and letting that awareness continue to move upwards through the body into the viscera, the organs, up through the spine, the spinal cord. And as we bring our awareness into our belly, really allowing the next breath that we take to soften that space and expand through that space. And letting that awareness continue to rise up through the diaphragm into the rib cage, continuing to move up the spine, into the lungs, into the heart space, up into the shoulders, down through the arms, all the way through to the fingertips, moving up into the throat, the neck, the voice, and continuing to move up into the head space, noticing your jaw, your tongue, your mouth, your nose, your cheeks, your eyes, your eyebrows, your forehead, your ears, your skull, anything beyond the surface of your skin. And feeling the body as a whole, noticing your relationship with gravity, feeling that connection to the earth. Yeah, using your imagination to visualize for a moment the relationship between your physical body and the center of the earth, and feeling that connection between those 2 points. And we're going to do a couple of rounds of synchronized breath. We're going to take a 5-second inhale and a 5-second exhale, and I will count. If the 5 seconds feels too long, feel free to adjust accordingly, whatever feels good to your body. Um, Allowing the breath to soften the belly, allowing the breath to expand the rib cage and the lungs, really letting the shoulders and the chest, the neck and the face continue to be soft through this breath. So exhaling, getting all the air out, and inhaling for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Relax. Let your breath return back to normal. Take a nice juicy inhale, really expansive. Let some sound out, let some wiggles out as you exhale. And one more time, in through the nose, big expansive breath. Fill up those juicy lungs. Exhale, move the body, move the spine, let the tension go. And taking a final moment to notice how you feel. Notice how you feel in your mind, in your body, in your spirit. And just taking a quick moment to send gratitude through your body. Taking a moment to feel grateful for the miraculous machine that you live in. Thank you all so much for practicing with me. If you'd like to continue to practice with me, I have an app called Toogie where I offer guided meditation, guided breath work, and some of my movement guidance, which is called Wiggle Room. Yeah, and with invite David to come back to the stage.
I am
Hey,
here.
you
Hello.
feel
Thank you
good?
so much. Transformational in 5 minutes. Only you can do it, Toogie. And I hope it was for you all. If the rest of y'all are feeling it, send an applause or a thumbs up here from your emojis. And yes, thank you so much for that moment, Toogie. And tell us again one time. So where do we find the app? Because I know some
You-
people are going to want to get on it.
Yes, you can find it on the Apple App Store or the Google Play. It's on Android and iOS, and it's called Toogie, Toogie. And yeah, it's a nice self-care tool in your pocket. Um, and yeah,
Wonderful. And if you'll allow me to shout out one other thing, I'm going to embarrass you, but I'll say, Toogie, we've known each other for almost 10 years, I think, for many years. When I was in LA, Toogie was one of the first choreographers, LA dance choreographers that I really got a chance to work with deeply and was so grateful for that time. So if you ever hear or see anything that Toogie's doing in LA, if y'all are down there, please check it out. You're going to love the work. And we're going to let you go now, Toogie, so we can
thank
roll right
you.
along. But yes, thank you again for being a part of it. All right. See you
Of
next
course.
time.
Have
All
fun,
right.
everyone.
Yep. See you on the other side. And Toogie will be there to hang out if you all want to hang out and say hi on the other side of our program. But yes, at this time, we're going to roll right along to a segment, an artistic segment of our program. We want to remind y'all that we're using multiple technologies, and this is the first time for a lot of our participants. So thank you for your flexibility and rolling through the virtual world with us as we organically move into the next part of our program. So I just wanted to check in and see if our poet that we have with us, who we've invited to do a live poetry reading, if our poet can join us, Rohan DaCosta, who is a photographer, an author, and an arts curator, originally from Chicago, and is currently based in Oakland. And I know is trying to come on in video, but may only be available on audio. So I'm going to invite you onto the stage, Rohan, and let us know if you are able to come in. One sec. All right, I've invited you onto the stage, so if you are able to join, feel free to come up. Ah, there you are. Can you see and hear us?
I can hear you. I can't see anyone. I can't see myself, but this is kind of, what we prepared for yesterday.
Wonderful. Well, thanks for rolling with the tech punches with us. And yes, I want to let you take it away to share what you have prepared for us.
All right. Yeah, it's an honor to be here. Hope you all can hear and see me. Um, as mentioned, I'm from Chicago. I moved to the Bay about 10 years ago. So very happy and proud to call the Bay my second home. So I'll launch into some poetry that was kind of one of the first pieces I wrote out here. A lot of this stuff is kind of observational in my experience being here in this landscape of socioeconomic landscape of this area. So I used to be a residential cleaner in San Francisco, and one of the neighborhoods I quickly became um, aware of was the marina. And so I lived in Fruitvale, I lived in East Oakland. And so I kind of wanted to talk about how it felt, getting up early in the morning, taking a bus and a train and climbing up those hills to the marina, what that difference felt like. It's just a short poem. Um, it's called A Crack in the Marina. I would like to sell crack in the marina just as a practical joke. Invite all of my friends at the bottom of the hill onto all of your boats. I want to walk barefoot on your pristine streets, singing to you the hymns from our mean streets. Under blackened skies with silver tinsel, we drink and fuss over the raiders. We make golden tortillas for your silver platters. Our distant laughter reminds you of cicadas. The bridge might be the only thing that doesn't lie between us. We see your parties, we celebrate too, You go all night, we go all night too. Though our lives sometimes feel like the thinnest nylon between our last mistake and our last chance. So that's that one. Once again, I wrote that pretty early on in my journey here in the Bay. This next one is written a bit more recently, so you kind of get some bookends a bit. So this one's inspired by Oakland. I moved from Fruitvale to Ghost Town, and so the past 10 years I've kind of gotten to know this place by my humble estimation. But yeah, anyway, this one's called Somewhere in This Town. Somewhere in this town, there's a sideshow that nobody can see. Yet the fumes are insufferable and the screeching is unrelenting. Somewhere in this town, there's an uncle sweating out half a can of OE, shouting, "Nah, let them fight." This town is what the cat dragged in. Somewhere in this town, there's a bowl of fruit spilling over, spray painted on the wall of a crowded underpass, right between the tents. Somewhere, someone is praying for abundance. I thought of manufactured scarcity when one of the twins came to my front gate telling jokes. You want to know why all the McDonald's around the world is struggling right now? A smile creeps across my face. Why? Because there's only one Mack left. Man, if you don't get from my yard talking that nonsense, I say, unable to conceal my laughter. Somewhere in this town, there's a community garden begging to be set loose. Somewhere in this town, there is enough to go around. Somewhere in this town, the Isley brothers is carried on a breeze, fluttering past the kente cloth and obsidian, a sensual agenda pollinated by a black man of a particular age, cruising on a motorcycle of a particular make. Someone in this town just said, make a left on Huey P. Newton Way. Somewhere in this town, a precious baby finds their way home by searching for the house, with the women panthers lifting their voices and raising their fists. This town is what the cat dragged in. Somewhere in this town, a man sits ashy and naked on the top of the NL bus to the city. OPD tries to talk him down. Ambitions as a rider plays in a car nearby. Somewhere in this town, iridescent boys on dirt bikes weave like schools of fish past the boarded up shops and protest murals. Somewhere in this town, a woman is telling her friend that every time a man looks at her, she feels like she's being pulled over. Somewhere in this town, an Asian elder is being protected because somewhere in this town, there is still strength in numbers. Did you know that there are over 15,000 vacant units in this town right now? Did you know that there are over 4,000 homeless people in this town right now? Somewhere in this town, the mayor is eating an Oreo with a napkin tucked inside her collar. She unlocks the magic and discards the chocolate that holds it together. But somewhere in this town, there's a parade just for Black joy. Somewhere in this town, the Black woman is God. Somewhere in this town, God Almighty is a mom for housing. Did you know that you can get yourself one of them new fancy studios on Broadway for $2,200 a month? Somewhere in this town, there's an artist on a scaffold threatening to say the quiet part out loud. Somewhere in this town, hella can't begin to describe it. Born cross-faded, raised too vibrant. Out of night bursts a sweet defiance. This town goes hyphy to keep from dying. Somewhere In this town, the needle drops on Randy Crawford's raw silk as two lovers moan over the sounds of a sideshow that neither of them can see. Thank you.
So much, Rohan. That was beautiful. And people could see and hear you. We've got people shouting you out in the chat. You might not, you probably can't see this, Rohan, but we've
I
got
can't
people.
think of it.
All right, we got people sending you love in the chat. One person said, I have heard of Fruitvale. Somebody said, yes, Black Joy. yAyA's got a yee for you in the house. People are saying it was amazing and so wonderful. So you're getting a lot of love from the crowd. Thank you so much for sharing your voice with us in this program, Rohan. If people are interested in finding out more about your work or reading more, is there a place you could quickly tell people to go to find you?
Sure. I'm mostly known for my photography at the moment. So my Instagram is the best way to see that, or a lot of things I might be, uh, sharing that I'm doing in the future. So my Instagram is play date photo, the word play, the word date, and then the word photo. So you can kind of keep up with me on there. I may post some literary stuff there too.
Beautiful. Thanks so much. And we put that in the chat so people can copy that handle as well. All right. Well, thanks again so much. We're going to let you go now and move on with our program so you can take your cam and mic off. You have that setting, and we'll let you go. Thank you again, Rohan, for your work. And now, everybody, we're going to roll over into our panel conversation part of the program. And so it is my pleasure to introduce you to a dear friend, a co-founder of Artist Magnet Justice Alliance, the lovely, indelible, incomparable Jessica Monet Evans. And I think I see a Jessica. There we go. We have a Jessica on the stage. So good to see you. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
You ready to have a convo?
I am. If you can hear me and see me, test,
We can
test.
hear and see you beautifully. Test it, test it. 1, 2, 3. The test worked out.
And I'm
Jessica's
in
going
good
to be
timing.
moderating our
Okay,
conversation.
great.
So, yes, Jessica, I will let you take it away and introduce yourself and then introduce our panelists.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, David. Good afternoon, everyone. Sending waves through the ethers. Hope everyone is doing all right, feeling fueled, feeling refreshed, feeling full of that great breath, excuse me, that Tookie guided us through. I thank you so much. And it's an absolute pleasure and an honor to be here to guide this amazing chat with two fantastic artists, theater artists, managers, philanthropists, and overall art inspirators, people who inspire via the arts. Yes, my name is Jessica Monet Evans. I'm an independent arts manager and dance fitness and wellness instructor. I have a nonprofit called Nubian Hippie Productions, which provides a platform for emerging artists and art companies to have access to resources and amazing event productions around the world. So you'll see more of that as the year progresses because it just started in December. So again, it is an absolute pleasure. We're going to bring the amazing Michael Bobbitt and yAyA to the stage. I'm going to do a brief intro before we invite them on. So firstly, we have yAyA. Uh, Firstly, we have Michael Bobbitt, who is an award-winning theater director, choreographer, and playwright who has dedicated his professional career to arts leadership. He's begun his tenure as executive director of Massachusetts Cultural Council in February 2021 and is the highest ranking cultural officer in Massachusetts. He is also the former artistic director of the New Repertory Theater in Massachusetts and the Adventure Theater in Maryland. Bobbitt has gained extensive experience in nonprofits as well as arts management by training at Harvard Business School, Harvard Kennedy School, University of Massachusetts, National Arts Strategies, Boston University, and his equity and diversity inclusion training at Cornell University, Art Equity in the People's Institution of Survival and Beyond. So amazing. So we can give it up to the amazing Michael Bobbitt, who has graced us with the stage. We're going to be referencing his article from the American Theater. Boards are broken, so let's break and remake them. David, if you can pop that in the chat for people to swiftly gaze through that before we get started. And then we're going to invite the amazing yAyA to the stage. So yAyA is currently working in San Francisco and Sacramento and is open to building and collaborating beyond borders. They grew between co-powering with visual, dance, movement, and movement arts, theater makers, and poets, weaving cultura, cura, ancestors and future ancestor traditions, myths, and story truth-telling styles, works, touring pieces, and digital media. Chorus is also celebrating their second year in curatorial residency at the 32 Broadway, located in Oak Park, Sacramento. So feel free to check out more information, and I'll have yAyA and Michael Bobbitt both share more about what they have going on, and then we can also do more chats after this conversation as well. So good afternoon, Michael and yAyA. Welcome, welcome.
Good afternoon. Thank you so much, Jessica. Hello, Michael.
Hi, yeah. Good afternoon, and actually good evening. I'm over here on the East Coast, and sun
Oh,
went down
yes.
a long time ago.
Good evening.
Fantastic. So again, this conversation is going to be centered around Michael Bobbitt's article in the American Theater. Boards are broken, so let's break and remake them. So I wanted to ask a few questions that would provide some assistance to emerging artists as well as some art veterans when it comes to developing a new nonprofit or already having an established nonprofit and thinking about how to potentially restructure it for the future. So we're going to dive right into some questions. Are we ready? Do you need to shake it out? Woo, woo. Yes, that's what I like to see. Awesome. So our first question is, what suggestions could you provide a gig artist to get them started when developing a nonprofit or for-profit company? If you can name one key thought partner they should have in their corner to assist with this development, who would that be?
My first suggestion is to first consider that the nonprofit sort of enterprise is it's just one business model that exists out there in the sort of creative sector. You have all kinds of things. You have collectives, you have B Corps, you have cooperatives. There's a whole world of things that exist in the solidarity economy. So first, do some research on that. Find out what those business models look like and see if it fits the vision of your art that you want. If you choose to go down the nonprofit route, I would take some time to learn the law, both the federal law and also the state law, and learn what you have control over and what you're giving up control over. Because as I mentioned, as the article mentions, I think that the practice of nonprofit boards right now is the model is broken. It doesn't work. It doesn't make any sense to me. And I existed and worked in it for many, many years. And now I'm funding lots of nonprofits and I listen to their struggles all the time. So that business model is a very difficult model to consider. Think about it all. And if you do form this nonprofit, build your values into every single organizing document. Build it into that first board that you put together, the people you engage with, everything, your bylaws, your charters, your mission, your vision. Build your values into that so that those values become embedded in all of your operational and programmatic practices. Because when it doesn't, and because you're pushing against an existing model that's been around for a very, very long time, you're going to start seeing the difficulties of being a nonprofit.
Sorry, having trouble clicking here. Thank you so much, Michael, for that lead. And I 100% echo every sentiment and every strategic point laid out by our brother Michael here, because it is indeed true. The first question you want to ask yourself is that the road I want to take this vision of mine into or onto? Is that the platform? is that going to best suit what the larger picture has for you and those that are around you, visioning what it is that you would like to create, co-create, sustain, and build upward. And as Michael said, if you do say yes after that research, after the visits to the Secretary of State office, for example, after looking at nonprofits that have been around for 5 years, 15 years, 40 years, right? And seeing how and where you fit in those trajectories yourself, envisioning that time, finding the exact partners, the potential, and the people that are going to be with you through the thick and the thin of it, so that they can be that foundation that Michael's talking about, to build upward in a very mindful and a very holistic and a very pure way, because it is a very broken system. It is one that can still work for folks where they are, as far as certain foundations and certain agencies that only fund nonprofits versus collectives or B Corps or cooperatives. But we have other ways to think about it if we are deconstructing and decolonizing, from step one. So that first question is exactly right, Michael. Do I really want to make that choice? And if so, walking forward in your power in that way.
That's
That's
amazing.
really.
Sorry, I was going to put a link to the solidarity economy page that I go to, because I know I mentioned that term and people may not know what that is, but there's a world of different business models out there you can consider.
Fantastic. Can you hear me? Can I get a thumbs up if you can hear me? Okay, fabulous. I was frozen on my end here. That was really great that you mentioned just absolutely making sure that you know exactly what you want to go into. That's really important. And sometimes we have the grand idea that we want to start this huge enterprise, and sometimes we just simply don't know where to start, or we may do our Google search and we think we have uh, all of the resources or the full inspiration, but there may be a little bit more that we need to tap into to really understand how we want to dive into that. So with that said, I wanted to move on to the next question on if you could provide any specific resources or arts organizations or art council meetings or newspapers or magazines that emerging artists could um, get a subscription to or have access to gain that information, to be in the forefront of those companies, to provide that inspiration, to provide that language, to really get those nuts and bolts rolling on how they wish to develop their project, their organization, their collective.
I think thank you, Michael. I think from my lived experiences and being on the funder side, almost as long as the practitioner side now, um, the relationships that one has or one can build directly with those actually walking in the shoes, I think is your best place to have conversation, to hold conversation, to have that heart to heart time or that mentorship time. And definitely attending, meetings that allow you to firsthand experience what it is like for your organization to be, as you mentioned, Michael, one that has power and no power in certain places when it comes to funding, when it comes to access particular funding that's tied to nonprofit status. And then, of course, your local libraries, I think, are wonderful places where typically nonprofit orgs that I know of in Sacramento and in San Francisco, there'll be nonprofit agencies there that are really accessible in the flesh, as well as with the resources. So I think those two places for me are just kind of like top of mind.
Yeah, and I will just say one point to the funding. I know that, and maybe yAyA, you can speak to this, but I'm state, I'm government, and we're having conversations internally about why are we only funding nonprofits? Sometimes you can be a for-profit and not make money. And we have precedents in the government world with small business grants and such. So we should be funding the sector as opposed to only nonprofits. So that's a big conversation we're having, and I'm hearing those conversations in other rooms of grant makers and philanthropists. I encourage you all to do your own self-learning. because I just find that a lot of the service organizations out there are perpetuating tropes and systems from the past. The nonprofit service organizations that put out best practices about nonprofits, I just don't. One, even the term best practice suggests that hundreds of beta testing and research and scientific data was collected, and then they threw it all out and kept this one thing that's the best practice. I just don't know if that's how it was designed. It just was maybe the only practice. And so we've been just following that practice for a while. So I just encourage you right now, you can get all the information you need within the click of a few buttons online. Do your own self-paced learning. Find people that maybe are change agents or radical thinkers or critical thinkers to have conversations with about what to take from those, the old best practices, what things need to be redesigned. I personally think anyone coming into the sector, I want you all to design new models and start perpetuating those so that we can get out of this same practice. I mean, just, one of the things that's happening right now is that we've reopened a lot of these organizations post COVID, and I'm getting emails every day saying my audiences aren't coming back. I don't know what to do. You need to give me more money. And why are you still marketing to the audiences that have told you for the last 2.5 years they're not coming back? So there's problem in the marketing because we only know a certain way to market. So do your own self-paced learning and come up with your own ideas because we need new ideas.
Echo, again. And 100%, I'm so leaning into, just being here present with you, meeting you here on this platform, being led by younger generations. I am elated and have so much faith in the ingenuity and the innovativeness and the heart, the dedication that our younger generations are putting forward and collaborating the way that they are. Beyond borders and beyond portals and intersecting portals, right? And yeah, you don't have to know the rule to break the rule, like break the rule from the beginning, I think, altogether, and make that new form, make that new formation, informed by what you are studying, as you said, in your own self pace. I want to say one other thing, but you got me so excited. Now it's just kind of
Is it about the funding of just only nonprofits?
Yes, thank you, Michael. We're connected there. So one thing on the inside of state funding that was really aggravating for me is, there's a particular law that the governor signed here in California over 10 years ago, and it said that it was going to do everything in its power to be present and be mindful about the reciprocity owed to the indigenous people of California. B 1011, I believe, is the work, and it was intended for every department to take into consideration doing business differently. And for us at the Arts Council at that time when I was there, it was something that I brought up constantly. And I said, it can't just be a land acknowledgement. It has to be a shift in the funding, a shift in the access, a shift in who's accessing these funds that come every single year. And so for the very first time in over 40 years, we were, and not the first time, I'm sorry, I know my predecessors did this before we came into play, but it was funding, even other governments, not just nonprofits, because we have sovereign nations within every state. And so why are we denying that funding to flow? And it's because no one is not enough of us are on the inside when we are on the inside with enough support from our leadership. So that was a challenge there. And I think when I left, I think only two tribes actually were able to access this funding directly, not indirectly, but directly through the advocacy that myself and my colleagues were making happen there at the time. So, and individuals as well, as you said, Michael, why only nonprofits? Individuals and sovereign nations and different economy-based organizations, as you mentioned, like cooperatives, right?
Wow, that's really interesting. That's really full of culture, enlightenment. There's a lot of diversity and inclusion that is trying to be more integrated into the arts when it should have been integrated in the arts from the get-go, because that is what art is about, including the people, inspiring the people. And it's kind of hard to do that when you don't have all of the voices behind the table to make sure that there isn't an infiltration, if you will. There's more of a collaboration when it comes to providing the arts in communities. So Michael and yAyA, I wanted to ask, what is your ideal future for the BIPOC community in the arts, and how do you see that shifting the arts? And what can we do to make that stand? What can we do to get on the other side of those tables to make sure that our voices are heard? So that we are providing the community with the enriching arts that they need, and we're not just bringing in arts that we think they need or we think they want.
Yeah, I have a few things. So one is just to recognize that the status quo is not an accident. It is not an accident. And sometimes we call it dysfunction, but truthfully, those organizations that are perpetuating the status quo are highly functional. It was designed to benefit one group of people. And so what we need is, again, radical thinking, critical thinking, new ideas, show them new ways of doing things that are based on our own cultures. I also think, and this is sort of where I struggle as a government agency who relies on the advocacy of the people that I'm serving, to get funding and to get policy change. I'm not sure. I'm trying to think of the words. This is in draft form, so forgive me, everyone. I want artists, especially BIPOC artists, to show up at the public square a lot more. I need your voices when we're advocating for change policy and new funding. A lot of the legislators I speak with only know the people that are showing up to them, and those are mostly white people. So when they're thinking about the arts and culture sector and who gets funding and who doesn't get funding, they're seeing the faces that they see. So I need you all to show up as much as possible. And if that means you need to understand how policy works at the state level or the city level, I hope you will take some time and do some self-learning about that, because it's so important. It's so important. And I also think that from the last data I saw, maybe 2021, showed that the cultural sector in the U.S. put $919 billion into this country's GDP. That's higher than agriculture, education, construction, utilities. We make a lot of money for this country, and yet when we look at the funding and the policy that supports us, there's not a lot of it. And I can only think that maybe the cultural community is not enough of a threat to our legislators. Maybe they don't understand that in order to get elected, they need us to vote for them. In order to vote for them, we need to know they're going to take care of us. And so I need you all to show up a lot more. I need us to all show up a lot more at the public square. And then I just think that we need more radical thinking. And yeah, I'll stop there.
Radical thinking, indeed. And I think that action that you're speaking about can look very different for our various artists who are typically juggling, 2-3 jobs and care for loved ones. In my particular case, my 80-something plus papa, writer, and 70-something plus mama, teacher, both retired teachers, and my artist renaissance 19-year-old son, who just exited, so I can keep my my speaker on here, or my mic on. I'm like, thank you. We're here in temporary housing because of the storm right now, so there's lots of things going on, and people think there's so much going on and I can't show up. Well, there's different ways to show up. Thankfully, you can do it online. Thankfully, you can do it through letters. Thankfully, you can do it through calls. You can actually, organize within your own spaces, your own home spaces or porches or backyards, and have people that do have a little bit more flexibility show up on your behalf. And then when they show up, you say, we represent 20 artists, or we represent, a collective of 40, or a collective of 4, four groups that speak, 4 languages, for example, right? And we live in these 4 districts. But it's definitely showing up and learning and being present, and implementing yourselves. And I do want to applaud a few of the folks here, I think at least a handful, who accepted my call to action when I was in the seat of the California Arts Council as a panelist, because artists being at the table alongside their funders, and alongside other arts administrators in their different fields and their different places of work, is very important, and it's also very important that we have 20-year-olds, 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, all the way up, because when I left my space, it was imperative for me to have the panel look like the flip side of what had been there 30 years before, right? And that was a panel that was 4 folks that were of white ancestry, you can name all of the above, and 1 person of color, Alana or BIPOC person representing all of us. And that doesn't work because not one of us is a monolith, right? Not one of our peoples are a monolith. And so while I was there, I heard testimonies from, my elders and my peers and my, in the younger generation saying, I have never been on a panel where it's all women of color. I've never been on a panel where it's all people of color. I've never been on a panel with non-binary folk. I've never been on a panel with a deaf, artist next to me. I've never, and I thought, this is California. What the heck is going on here? What is going on? And as you mentioned, radical, Michael, like I didn't think I was being radical. I thought I was doing my business. I thought I was doing what my granddaddy taught me how to do, and that was think for myself, right? But think for myself with the voices of my ancestors in unison with me, right? Because we don't show up alone at our meetings. We show up with our people, right? We show up with generations of people who've been silenced, who've been displaced, who've been pushed, and we say no more. And so I want to applaud some of you. I think I saw Andrea here, and I've definitely had David. And it's not just stopping there and being one who's listening and learning at the table how other grants are being presented, how to adjudicate these grants, but it's also finding the connections and relationships with artists that you're going to continue to build upward and outward with, and also connecting with people that will become your mentors, people that you will mentor, people regardless of age and regardless of our genders. It's there that you take a step and, you show up to present to the who? The board. Who? The commissioners. Who? The governor, right? And you open up, like we had beautiful Bernard Brown of Los Angeles, dancing, with about 120 other beautiful arts and culture strategists and movers and radical thinkers and makers of the state, presenting on a night that we changed from like the Christmas lighting night to the winter lights, festival, right? For the first time. And it's something that has happened every single year for the governor, but we made it for the people, because the governor serves who? The people, right? So we show up in different ways. Sometimes it's to be at the meeting. Sometimes it's to read, 50 grants. Sometimes it's to speak on behalf of your organization and say, we're not a nonprofit yet, but now we know how to be, right? So, yeah. Thank you, Michael, for speaking to that.
Yes, just hearing about being a radical in the arts, which to most people come very hand in hand, and just understanding, just simply showing up for yourself, showing up for your people. I want to ask yAyA and Michael, what would you say, or how could we politely counteract someone if they were to say that art and activism do not go hand in hand?
Take the lead. Oh, I loved what you said about this in your article. So take the lead, please.
Oh, what did I say? I don't remember.
Like, we don't have a choice. It's too late.
Yeah, we don't. Well, the world, first of all, you can't do racial equity work without people of color. It's not possible. They need us. So that's one thing. But the second thing, this is a principle that I've lived by a lot. So that's sort of a binary. You can't be an artist and an activist, right? That's a binary. It's not true, right? But the thing about that statement is that it's an opposition statement. It's a different way of thinking. And I like to think of opposition as data, as an asset. I need to hear what idea or this thought I have so that I can make the most informed and inclusive decision. So, and in today's world, if you're opposing my view, you are the enemy, right? That's the way it's working in politics today. But if we think about the problems that we have, there's always going to be two sides to it. So let's use that opposite thought as information to help us make another decision. Um, but and the other thing I would say is that I think from the beginning of time, art has always been used as a social justice tool. Yeah, we can we have the unbelievable ability to imagine the future, right? We can open up a blank document and see a play or a poem or a book or a movie. We can see a blank canvas and see all the things on that canvas that other people can't see. That's the unique position that we have. And so we can also see a world where these things that are wrong aren't wrong, or we can see a different perspective into something. And so art has always been a thing that's helped other people see the things that they maybe can't see. So it's a social justice tool. So anyone that doesn't want to do activism work and is an artist, I'm just going to say, too bad. You are an activist. It's just part of who you are, unless you know, are, I don't know. I'm not going to say that, but it's there, and I just think use your ability to see the future and to imagine the world that you want to live in, and make it happen through your voice and your art.
Yes, I love how you lead with love. I can hear it. You don't even have to say the word, but you are leading your thought with love. And I think that um, as we carry forward and not um, allowing the hate and not allowing the discrimination and not allowing all of the isms to sink further than they have through our education, through walking in this country the way we have to as people with beautiful melanin, right? But walking in love and walking in our power, I think, is really important. And we have never, as people of our various cultures in our various paths, separated being an artist and being human, right? So I think what's radical is for someone to say you have to choose one or the other, to say you have to leave one behind by taking the directorship of an opera, for example, right? No, it is. We are going to bring more people to the table. We are going to expand the languages. We are going to expand the way in which people see themselves in this place called sacred, space, the stage, right? For all of us to be connected, for all of us to heal, for all of us to feel our richness and our worth, right? Not for those to be turned away because they can't afford a ticket, you know. And making things accessible, right, is really important. So yeah, you can't. Yeah, if you're trying to separate those two or be in that binary world of those are not being connected, then I don't want to work with you. And we can choose to say, I'll work somewhere else, right?
Yeah. No, yeah, I mean, leading with love, I believe anti-racism, equity, diversity, inclusion, anti-oppression of any kind is all acts of love, showing love to people that have never been loved by this country before. And I hope that motivates a lot of people. But I just want artists to know you already have the tools to do all the things that you want to do, to shake up this system, to design new things. And some of it sometimes requires thinking outside of, as I mentioned before, thinking outside of what we know. I think about like this issue with, since you brought up tickets, this issue with affording tickets, right? The price of a ticket for many organizations is about the same price of a nice sneaker, right?
Mm.
But somehow we have chosen to buy the sneakers because it feels like us, right? When it's designed, maybe it's designed with us in mind, maybe it's not designed with us. But sometimes we don't want to buy that ticket because there's no one like us that's working at that organization. And so that's the part I think we can use. We can think about what's, like this patron loyalty programs we call subscriptions, which are just so racist. Racist things that we have in the arts sector in the world. Who has the resources to buy a whole year's worth of tickets 6 months in advance? And what privileges do we give them? Well, we let them buy their tickets first. And then often we are incentivizing them by giving them a discount. People that can afford to pay full price, we're giving them a discount for the best seats in the house. So there's just so many things that are wrong with that system. But in the world of patron loyalty programs, we have so many patron loyalty. We have grocery stores, we have Netflix, we have ice cream stores, we have hotels, we have, let's borrow from these other things where we feel like it's us and we feel like we can participate and bring that into the arts world. The arts world has been designed by predominantly white people, and that's why we're struggling right now. And as a person of color, as a black man, you ask me the things that make me black, and I'll tell you it's the music, it's the dance, it's the food, it's the art, it's the fashion. And so inherent in who I am is art. And so those organizations that don't include me in how they build their business models and their programming are missing out on all the people that exist in this country that have art already embedded into their system, into their soul. So they're losing out, which is why we go and create our own thing. But if we want to have more of an integrated society, they have to redesign their business model with people of color.
Yes,
Amen to
yes,
that all the way
yes.
around.
That was amazing. Thank you so much. I don't want to ask another question because it is going to go over time and David's going to get me. Do we have any closing thoughts for this conversation? Emerging artists coming into the arts, being BIPOC in the community, shaking it up, changing it up, allowing it to be fabulous, flawless, and funded. Hello. Fantastic.
Just that we need you, and don't be afraid. I'm going to put my information in the. Hopefully, it'll show up in the chat. Feel free to reach out, text, email, message. We just need you. We need your thoughts. We need your thinking. We need your ideas. We need it all. And don't be afraid to call funders and call legislators and call leadership. They don't know, and they need your thoughts.
And I thought it said poppy, but it says popple. What does it say?
Oh,
I need one of
popple.
those. I need one
Yeah.
of those little things. But that was gonna sound funny. I need a poppy.
Popple.me. I have a bracelet so I can just touch somebody's phone and then everything
my
goes to their. So it's a cool thing. But
Sounds like a Wonder Woman bracelet. I need, love it.
Beautiful.
I'll
Thank
catch
you.
up with that, Michael. Sorry, David. Thank you so much, you
Oh
guys.
no, thank you. We could keep going. We wish we could keep going because we were really getting into some good stuff. But both of you can. I'm hoping you both can hang out for a minute or two when we go back to the floor mode, so that people can, if they have a question or want to shout you out or continue the conversation, that they can. So we are going to continue the conversation, but first we've got to do our gratitudes. So I do want to say thank you, Jessica. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, yAyA, for guiding us in this and sparking this conversation for us. The beginning of more to come. Definitely, we want to keep it rolling, and a continuation of what's been built. To your point, yAyA, and so part of a continuum, and we're on the journey, and we're happy to be on it. So we're going to keep it rolling for sure. Also, want to bring up some of our rest of our crew onto the stage at this moment. We have a whole team here that helped us make this happen. So we want to say a thank you to Toogie and Rohan and Kayla and Elise, and also a thank you again to Lily and Cassandra, our bilingual interpreters. So if you all have the ability to come up onto the stage, I want to invite you onto the stage to say thank you so that the crew can also say, or the group, our friends here, our participants can say thank you. So give an applause to the team with your emojis, y'all. This could not happen without these peeps who have their own lives and their own jobs and their own worlds and have come together to help us make this happen. It's not as easy as it looks. It's a lot of tech and a lot of time and a lot of coordination to make this work. So thank you all.